You want it? We have it. The hottest mortgage and real estate strategy broadcast in the nation. A Smarter Way Home with your host, Danielle and Victor Bals. 50 years combined experience, ranked in the top 1% in the nation for home loan originations 2020. Promise to expand your knowledge, utilizing creative mortgage financing and home buying strategies. Build a bridge for a better quality of life. Get your brain cells firing for a smarter way home. And welcome to another episode of A Smarter Way Home. Modern mortgage and creative buying solutions for real estate professionals and consumers alike. My name is Victor Bals. I am your host, mortgage originator over 20 years, and I eat this stuff for breakfast. And I'd like to introduce my hostess, my co-hostess with the mostest, Mrs. Danielle Boots.
Good morning, Victor. How are you?
I am very good. It's raining out there in Detroit today. It's getting colder, and fall is coming in.
I know.
You know, I woke up this morning, 3 o'clock this morning, right? And, you know, the market out there, the real estate market, it's kind of uncertain. The mortgage interest rates are getting up their high, you know, and me being an individual in sales for 20 plus years, you know, I wake up every morning and still have that fright that what's going to happen to the market, what's going to happen to success. And as I got on the treadmill about 3:30 this morning, I got into it, and I got into about 30 minutes, and I was tired. And I said, man, I'm just tired. I want to get off the treadmill, you know. And it was the depression that I was feeling because of the market, and it was the motivation. And as I was walking, I started thinking there, and I go, you know what? I can't control the market, but I can control myself. That's one thing I can control. So I just dug in and I did 10K, and I got done, and I got off the treadmill, and I felt very good. And I go, that's the one thing I can control today. And now I'm going to get to work and control the other things I can control, and at least it motivates me that way. And I think that's what's going to be about this show today, Danielle. So that's my little motivational thing, and I'm kind of pumped up and energetic. I'm interested about today's show.
I am as well, so I do feel your pain. It's a crazy time in the industry. So we have a very exciting guest today, and we have a special event that we're planning. So we have brought with us today John Tenza, who is a 40-year real estate professional. He has been a professional speaker for 30 years and a results coach for the last 20 years. John is from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I have heard him speak, I think, multiple times. I think you have probably spoken at the Michigan Association of Realtors over the years, so I'm certain that was one of the times that I saw you speak. And we started talking at the office about having an event for realtors, and you were top of mind. And I said to Monica at the office, I'm like, see if John Tenza is still around. Is he coaching? Is he, still speaking? And so we're very excited to promote and invite all of our real estate professionals to an event on November 1st at Crystal Gardens in Howell called REV Up Your Real Estate Results for 2023. So not only do we feel that we need some motivation and focus in this changing market, we certainly know that our real estate partners do as well. So we're super excited about that. So welcome, John. Thank you so much for being here today. And we're super excited to kind of chat about what our plans are for November 1st and, what people can expect if they can attend.
Well, thank you very much, Danielle and Victor. It's a pleasure being here. And when we talk about Rev Up Your Real Estate Results, it's not just 2023. There are things people can be doing right now to generate a great January and February. And so you don't want to wait until the clock turns until we're into a new year, because right now, honestly, if you talk to a lot of people who are thinking about moving, you're going to hear the typical end of the year. We're giving it a rest. We're going to wait until the holidays. We're not sure what's happening with interest rates or the election. And so they have these built-in excuses or doubt things that they're giving power to. And if you have a really good real estate agent, that real estate agent can say to them, listen, now is the perfect time if you're thinking about making a move. There's not as much inventory. There are still plenty of buyers who want to buy homes. I mean, you look across America, in all 12 months have plenty of sales.
Right.
And so the thing about this market and change is nothing is different. Being in this business over 40 years, back when I started, February of 1979, interest rates were 7%. And then in the next couple of years, they went to 16, 17, and 18%. And so for the people that are thinking, wow, it's up to 7%, what happens if it hits 8? No worries, because people have to live somewhere.
Yeah.
On Maslow's need hierarchy, it's like the base: food, shelter, and clothing. You've got to have shelter. And people find a way, and when you look at the interest rate is up, okay, so what are you going to do about it? I mean, think about it. If it's a 7% interest rate and I get to build equity and I get tax write-offs on the interest and the loan amount, okay, the interest I'm paying, all right, and I rent, I get 0% equity when I rent. I'm literally not renting. Every single person that rents needs to hear this.
Right.
You are not renting. You're buying the house for someone else. So why not buy it for yourself?
If you can find a rental.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right on, Victor.
Well, I had a conversation with a client who just got an accepted offer actually over the weekend. And she was looking for a house for the last 2 years. They were moving from Fowlerville to Howell. I'm sorry, at Heartland. And they knew even the neighborhood that they wanted to be in. So I've had them pre-approved for the better part of 2 years. And they were looking under $400,000 2 years ago. Because of COVID and real estate being shut down and the fear and anxiety that they experienced back then, they put everything on hold. I actually think they did refi in the past couple years. But life circumstances are still propelling them to need to be in Heartland. So now they're in contract, but they're paying $445 for that same house that they wanted 2 years ago. And hindsight is always 20/20, but looking back, the client said to me, she goes, well, the house would have been cheaper and the interest rate would have been a lot cheaper. Now, because of other circumstances in life, they've made the decision to move now. And she said to me, she goes, I'm not worried about interest rates. I mean, they're putting a healthy down payment down. So yes, it's impacting her, but she just said to me, no, we know, Danielle, I'm going to refinance and I'll probably go to a 15-year when rates come down.
Right on. And see, that's the strategy, Danielle and Victor. Waiting is never a good strategy.
No,
and
it's
if
not.
you had bought 2 years ago, it was great. If you bought 1 year ago, it's great. But here's the sad truth. If you wait 2 years, you're going to kick yourself because you didn't buy in 2022 or 2023.
And that's what we're telling people right now that are looking to be buyers or looking to be sellers. I mean, if you have a house to sell and it's priced well, it's going to sell.
Yes.
Okay. If you really want to be a motivated buyer, go out there and find a house. Just make sure that your expectations are based on where your price range is and what market conditions are.
It's kind of funny because I have several prospects I've been working with for a year, and they understand those interest rates were down in the 3s a year ago. But recently I've had new buyers come in because they're thinking, hey, I want to buy a home. So they aren't used to those 3% rates. They weren't looking for a home, so they were not paying attention to the rates. And they say, oh, 7%, okay,
that doesn't
that's
sound
cool.
bad. Yeah.
Let's go find a house here.
Yeah.
So it's the psychology of buyers, but I think it's also the psychology of realtors because they think the rates were low and rates are high. What do you think about that, John? How does a realtor compete and handle those objections to these home buyers and these home sellers now?
It's all relative. Vegetables are 40% higher this year than they were last year, yet people still eat vegetables. So when you're saying it's higher, it's your database that you're coming from. It's your known. There's change constantly in life, and there's certainly change in real estate. When someone is saying 7% is too high, it's really compared to what? When
the last 2 years.
I was selling homes and interest rates back in the 80s were 16, 17, and 18%. And for a seller to go FHA or VA, they had to pay 15 points to allow the buyer to buy their home that way. So we've seen slumps, we've seen .com crashes, we've seen Wall Street crashes, and real estate always survives. And the bulk of people who are millionaires in America did it through real estate. And when you're looking at what do I tell my buyer, I tell them buy now. Now let's just break it down. Last year was a very difficult home for real estate agents and buyers. By that I mean, I have a tremendous amount of skill. And I know how to work with buyers, and I know how to write offers, and I know how to negotiate. Last year, I had buyers I worked with that I wrote 6 offers. The highest one was 9 offers. And these buyers were not paying full price. They were going 30, 40, 50,000 over asking. I even wrote an offer last year, $100,000 over list price, and we lost.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is that was majorly stressful for buyers because they would write a great offer on a home they fell in love with only to find out 16 people also wrote offers. Now think about that. Now you're in the car with a real estate agent meeting him at the next house that you think you'd love to call home. And you know that 15 people didn't get the other home, so they all are running
they're all
over.
following
Yeah,
you
like
down
to
the
a
street.
picnic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
plus, you've got the new buyers coming in now.
Yeah.
And so we saw a big increase, a big jump with buyers saying, oh, interest rates are jumping from 3 to 4 to 5. We better get in before it goes up. That 3%, that was like unheard of. So that was so artificially low
Yeah.
that it may come down again, but I don't believe we'll ever see 3 again. And what they're doing, and unfortunately for the people in the mortgage industry and buyers and sellers and real estate agents, the government has the vehicle to control inflation, and that one vehicle they have is to raise interest rates. So that really doesn't control inflation. It didn't cause vegetables not to rise.
Right.
So what it does is it has to have that buyer and the realtor have a mental adjustment saying, if I'm a seller and my house now is not going to get a crazy high price, I'm going to get a realistic price, a fair price, a good price. Then that means when I buy my next home, I'm not going to be overbidding. I'm going to be able to pay a fair price.
Right.
So if you're buying and selling or selling and buying, you win. Now, if you're coming in the market, like you said, Victor, I mean, try to get a credit card for 7% interest rate. They're 29%. So when you look at compared to what, 7% isn't that bad. Also here in America, the government is our partner. We get to write off our interest. We get to write off, the percentage of taxes, and we build some equity. I've got folks that I coach in Canada, and they have no write-off. And what the government does there, which is kind of cool, is if the interest rate is 7%, they qualify you 1.5% higher than whatever the current interest rate is. So you have to qualify as a buyer at 8.5%.
Wow.
This way, if the market goes up, if the rate rises, you already were qualified, so now you're not at risk of losing the home.
Because they don't necessarily do fixed rates in most
No,
other countries.
they do 5 years, and then they review it, and then you
Yes.
go up.
Yep.
So here
In America, we can't even fathom that, right? Everybody wants a 30-year fixed rate mortgage and have some security.
And also, you're both pros at this. I mean, as far as, renting a home, if you can rent and pay $1,500 a month and you have a good credit score, definitely talk to Victor, talk to Danielle, talk to USA Mortgage, see what you can do, because you may be surprised. You mentioned, Danielle, just a few minutes ago, you could actually buy a home for less than you're renting it.
In a lot of cases, yeah. I just heard of somebody recently paying $1,800 a month for rent in Brighton. $1,800.
My wife just rented a home in Ann Arbor for $3,500 a month.
Wow.
And the folks were coming in, and they weren't sure if they were staying here because they were consultants. And so they said, a year from now, we'll be looking to buy. But temporarily, we're doing
Well,
this.
here's the thing that my prediction, okay, based on the market, and ultimately as painful as it is right now, right, for real estate professionals, buyers, sellers, and mortgage professionals, with rates being this high, the prediction is that once they get inflation under control, rates will temper and probably come down.
Yes.
So if the market gets everybody up to the 7, maybe 8, which I would cringe, but I don't necessarily think that that's out of the realm of possibility here in the next couple weeks. If and when we get back down to the low 6s or the 5s, people are going to go nuts, right? All those fence sitters, all those buyers that stepped to the sidelines and said, well, I'm not going to buy right now, they're going to be back in the spring with a vengeance. And this, I think, next spring will be worse than 2022 or 2021, because the demand for housing is predicated by the millennials.
Yes.
And there's 45 million of them out there.
And they have jobs.
And they have jobs, and they have dual incomes.
Yes.
Our kids are millennials. My older 2 daughters are already homeowners on their second homes, both under 30. And when my oldest daughter bought her first house, which was about 7 years ago, my husband thought I was nuts. She was finishing her master's degree. And he goes, well, she doesn't need to buy a house. Back then, she was paying $1,200 to $1,400 a rent in Southfield in a okay neighborhood. We didn't, but she made a ton of money on that first house, paid off her student loans, had down payment for the next house. And, so I think next year is going to be nuts. And I think what consumers also need to realize, and real estate agents, is how much revenue the sale or purchase of a home puts into our economy.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It is not just the realtors and the mortgage professionals getting paid. It is the big box home improvement stores, the carpet stores, the paint.
Funny, because when I was on the treadmill this morning, I was thinking that identical thing. I'm thinking,
isn't it $78,000
for every sale?
For every sale.
But I was thinking, I'm on the treadmill, and I'm thinking, well, God, if we don't make a sale, then we don't have a moving truck, okay? If you don't have a moving truck, the guy that makes the boxes might be out of a job, and the guy that cuts down the tree to make the pulp to do the boxes is out of a job, and all the people that do the maintenance on the chainsaws are out of a job. But it's just
don't forget the guy that makes the tape
thing. So that is going to slow down the economy, which will bring down inflation, which will get rates back. But I want to talk about, I think it's the psychological aspect. Everybody was used to those rates, but Americans have a very short-term memory. Yeah. So if let's say rates were 7 for the past 5 years and they were solid, we'd be in a normal market because there is no fluctuation in rates. And I think this fluctuation has scared people to the curb. And I think people actually justify not buying. I don't have enough money. I'm going to wait for the market to crash. My father said I need 20% down to avoid PMI, and they're coming up with any excuse not to buy. It's justifying that. And I'm hearing the realtors talk with their sellers on that. And that's what we need to do, is break that psychology, John. And how do we have those realtors handle those objections with those sellers and buyers? What tools are you going to be able to offer at Crystal Gardens for these agents to talk about that?
So that comes under a technical term or a psychological term called reframe. And the reframe is where you have to change the way you think about it so that you can change the way buyers think about it. And if someone says 7% is bad, 7% is not bad. If you had $100,000 in the bank, wouldn't you like to get 7%?
Absolutely.
The last couple of years, if you had $100,000 in a major bank, you got 1% interest.
If you were lucky.
Right. So 7 would be fantastic.
Can I get their name? I'd still like to make 1%.
So the thing is, all the gurus, all the economic forecasters, all the folks that are in the know are really saying that real estate right now, if it's a recalibration on the price, okay, or an adjustment on the price, going from craziness, twilight zone, to something that's more of a normal market, you want to get in, because 5 years from now, it's going to be a lot higher.
Yeah.
And right now, interest rates are low. And there's a big shift. A year ago, buyers were saying to the sellers, we want to buy your home. We'll guarantee the appraisal. We'll pay some of your closing costs. And now the buyers get to say to the seller, we would like you to buy down the interest rate.
Yeah.
Because earlier this year, the interest rate was lower. Our payment would have only been X. And now, because interest rates went up, our payment is higher. And so you check with your mortgage loan officer, you check with the people giving you the mortgage, and you find out how much can you ask the seller to participate. So, if a house is up for sale for $400,000 and I bring you an offer for $395,000 cash, most sellers are going to say that's close enough. Well, that $5,000 would buy down the interest rate for the buyer, so they get a lower house payment. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a compromise. There's going to be a meeting of the mind. People are going to say, yes, I can cash out of my property, and I need to help the buyer get the financing.
And the realtors, and also a big shift for the realtors, especially those that have only been in the business 5 to 10 years and have never heard of a buy down or even an adjustable rate mortgage, frankly, that we need their participation, because they're leading the conversations with the sellers. They're leading the conversations with the buyers, and they have to work together with the lenders. I actually, we were at a real estate office a couple weeks ago, and I had a realtor come up to me and say, hey, Danielle, I got a problem with this deal. The client, is in contract, tight buyer, in a lower price range, and his closing cost in less than 3 business days had gone up $5,000. And they thought that the lender was taking advantage of the situation, and this buyer truly did not have the money. And I said, no, he's an FHA buyer. Everybody's paying points right now.
Yes.
Okay. So I said, if you're going to hold this together, you better figure out what you need to do to get the seller to help this
Yes.
buyer to get the deal closed, and don't throw the lender under the bus that we're doing this. You know, we have no control over rates and we have no control over closing costs, right? The companies we work for set those parameters. The industry sets those parameters. And I've talked to loan officers all over the country that I'm friends with at all different companies, bankers, brokers, you name it. And everybody's kind of in the same boat. So for any professional to say, oh no, we don't charge points right now, that's not the case. And it's progressively gotten a little more complicated as the year has gone on. So we need the real estate professionals to keep their heads open, their ears open, and to have the conversation and keep your pulse on the market so that you can advise. If you tell your seller that they're not going to have to give concessions and they're going to get multiple overpriced offers, you're going to be setting the situation up for failure, potentially, instead of creating the dialogue that here's where the market is. We can definitely sell your house. Maybe we'll get multiple offers. But even the whole multiple offer thing, that was very difficult for sellers too to deal with. How do you pick the right one? So the real estate professional reframing their focus and their knowledge of the market right now is extremely important. I see two groups with realtors. I see those that have been in the business maybe anywhere from 2 years to 10, and I see them 20 and over, because nobody got into real estate after the crash of '08. A few people did. Like, I do know people that were displaced from other jobs that got their real estate license, but a lot of them went back to a regular job, So we've got this weird dynamic right now with very seasoned agents and newer agents that have a very different frame of mind on where they've come from and what they've seen. What are your thoughts on that, John?
You have given me so much to work with, Danielle.
Need a sweatband?
Right on, Victor. So whether you're a seasoned real estate agent or a newer real estate agent, you have to be competent. You have to know what you do. You have to be credible. And that means you have to do homework. You have to do your research. If I'm placing a home on the market today, I'm going to look at what those homes are selling for, not what they sold for last year or the beginning of this year, but realistically knowing that there is a readjustment in the market. There's a little bit of a slowdown naturally at this time of the year. Interest rates are up. That takes a little bit away of what the buyer could pay for the home. That home down the street that sold for this much money, you think you're taking less on yours. That buyer's actually paying more at the higher percent interest. So you have to have the conversation with your seller and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here is what your home most likely will appraise for. So it can't just be, what do you think a buyer will pay?
Right.
What do you think it'll appraise for? So the appraiser, the underwriter, those are major components or hoops to jump through. So I would say any real estate agent that goes out and shoots for the moon, they're not doing their seller a service, because it's going to sit on the market. And then what's going to happen is it's going to be price reduced, price adjusted, hurry up and bring a buyer. We need this thing sold. And it gets stigmatized because in a fast-paced market, that doesn't happen. Everything sells. But in a market that's more stable, like we are in right now, we're not in a declining market. We're in a stable market. Mm-hmm. So you have the rising market, stable market, declining market. We are nowhere near a declining market. You might see some price adjustments, but it's adjusted to the reality, not the craziness or the twilight zone that we've been in. Mm-hmm. So I would say to you, Danielle and Victor, I'm putting a home up for sale on Oak Street. I want to have a conversation with the seller. It should sell for this amount. I would love for you to do a sheet for me showing the seller and the buyer from my highlight sheets I'm creating to market this property. What happens at 6.5%? What happens if we buy the interest rate down to 5% or 5.5%? And now I can position that to my seller and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we can cash you out, but we need your help because interest rates are up. If you help the buyer afford your home, they'll buy your home.
Right.
So we have to partner now to find that buyer. Now, you have lots of sellers that their home didn't sell this summer. And quite honestly, I'm going to tell every single person on this podcast and when we're live at Crystal Gardens on November 1st, if you have homes that are up for sale right now and you had them up for sale in the summer, they're overpriced. Okay, there's only two reasons why a home doesn't sell. Okay, it's not priced properly or it doesn't show well. And so in today's world, when I got in real estate, it used to be location, location, location. That's not it today. It's location, amenities, condition. Many buyers are looking to buy a home and they walk in and say, needs too much work. It's exactly the neighborhood, the area I want to live in, but I don't want to do all this reconstruction or work. So sellers who haven't done anything for a while, they deferred those updates of the kitchens and bathrooms, but everyone's watching TV shows 7 days a week now where they're showing you that, my gosh, a can of paint that cost you 50 or 60 bucks, if a seller repaints, it could be worth thousands on the wall because it's appealing.
Yeah.
And with the internet and everything that people can see, their phone, their devices, you want that house to show to its best ability. So maybe before you place your home on the market, you want to have a conversation with the real estate agent and say, listen, you want to stage your home. You want to prepare your home to show the best way possible. Because people buy with their eyes and they get emotionally involved. And when they fall in love, they don't care if the interest rate is 7 or 6.5 or 5. How do I get the home? What's my house payment going to be? Can I afford that? Okay, let's do it.
When you think about the digital era we're in, okay, and you think about, we chatted about this before the show. You've been in real estate for 40 years. Back then, we had real estate books.
Yes.
That came out with this tissue paper, right? One picture of the house and a little box that had the basics of the house.
Absolutely.
Okay. You had to call the other broker, set an appointment, take your buyers to physically see the house. Now in our digital world, pictures are all over the internet.
Yes.
And we hear two things, okay? Either you look at the pictures and they're fabulous. A lot of professional realtors do take professional photos of their homes, which is a great investment. Other people still do it with their cell phones, which is not a great investment. But the picture and what it looks like is going to tell you whether or not a buyer is even going to show up on your front porch.
Absolutely.
And sometimes those pictures are accurate representations and sometimes go, oh, that house didn't look like the pictures at all once you get in there and see it. And it's one thing if it's paint and flooring, but when you get into, sellers that have been in homes 30, 40 years, original kitchens, original bathrooms, you're right, that has a huge impact on how a buyer is going to look at it and how they're going to value that property.
Well, absolutely right. There's no question about it. And to add on to that, in the last 2 years, if I was helping a buyer purchase a home and we got the interest rate, USA Mortgage is taking good care of them, they look at that home and they say, can I even get a contractor?
Correct.
So if I buy this home, when can I get somebody out? And right now, if you call a contractor, they're already quoting, we can't come out until the spring of next year. We're so booked.
If you're lucky. Yeah,
If you're lucky.
A pool improvement is a 2-year wait right now.
Right.
In Michigan.
But even get to that point where the buyer can look at that house. Going back to that $400,000 home that you were going to sell, I actually run the numbers, and we've been actually having a lot of discussions about the 2-1 buy downs,
Yes.
about buying down the interest rates. And I think this starting now through 2023, I think the real estate agents have to become much, much closer with the loan officers
Partnering.
because
Right on, Victor and Danielle. Partnering.
Because these realtors have to understand these 2-1 buy down strategies because they are the ones having conversations with their sellers and they're also having conversation with the buyers. And a realtor to me is a matchmaker.
Yes.
And it's that listing agent having that conversation with the buyer's agent and the buyers and the lender to understand. And when we talked about that $400,000 property, let's say you were the seller, John, and I came into you and I said, hey, would you take an offer of $391 today? You, the seller, may consider that. But if a traditional type thinking comes in and a buyer says, I'm just going to drop the price $9,000, that's only going to be $60 to the payment. However, John, if you were willing to actually kick in that $9,000 towards closing costs, prepaid items, discount points, and or temporary buy down, now that customer, that buyer is going to lower his interest rate 2 full percent in the first year, saving him $488 a month.
A month.
In the first year.
And if you take $488 times 12 months, that's $6,000 they save.
Yes, and then $249 in the second 12 months, and in the third year it reverts to that 7% today.
If interest rates don't come down.
If they don't come down.
Everyone is saying this is a temporary fix because of inflation. 2 years from now, there's a big presidential election. They're going to do something to get
Yeah.
the market stimulated.
Well, here's the cool thing. And if someone does do this and they sell or refinance when rates come down in the first 2 years, they actually get any of that seller money that was contributed to the buy down towards them. So it's a no-brainer, and we kind of call it the recession rider, to ride out this recession, to get those psychological affordability questions out of the buyers. But we have to understand to that seller, if you're willing to give somewhat of a concession, let's offer a 2-1 buy down on our listing ticket in our agent remarks. Let's talk to the lender, let's talk to the buyer, and let's negotiate together, not on price, but on structure
And terms.
Because we are matchmakers. But again, it's the strength of that listing agent, buying agent, working together, partnering with their lenders to say, let's all work together. Because if everybody in this county did a $9,000 price drop, what would happen? Values would go down. But right now, our comps still show and support that price. And what we have is that psychological barrier of these interest rates that went up so quickly, so fast, and everybody's a bit concerned or scared of that affordability factor. This can keep it all moving.
It'll keep buyers in the market.
Right
It'll
on.
keep sellers moving forward. And one of the calls that I get frequently is sellers that have lived in their home for many years. They're aging in place and they need to downsize. Some of them are waiting too long. So
Yes.
20 years ago, we've talked about this before. 20 years ago, somebody would downsize at about 65 years old. Now they're not downsizing until about 75. Okay. And at that point, sometimes people have some health issues that make all of that decision-making process harder. And those sellers probably have their homes free and clear. And they're family-sized homes that need a new family so that we can get that seller into a condo. So this shift in the market hopefully will help free up some inventory because people need to move. People get married, people get divorced, people pass away, people, retire, relocate, age, need to downsize. There's a million reasons. We're still getting calls every single day from people that need advice on when should I sell. I had a call yesterday. I'm getting a divorce and I need to prepare for this. What are my options? That's a conversation that I can have 365 days a year,
Absolutely.
regardless of what the interest rates are.
And I would add what you said, Victor and Danielle, is spot on. Not so much downsizing, but actually right sizing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because if I have a big 4-bedroom colonial and there's just the two of us, that's a lot of heat I'm paying every winter, a lot of extra utilities.
Yeah.
Unless you hate each other. That way you got plenty of space on each side of the home.
and cleaning and maintenance. To go into a 2-bedroom condo ranch where the outside maintenance is taken care of, that just makes so much more sense.
It does.
And you're going to have equity. You probably will be a cash buyer on that smaller unit that you're moving into. And, it makes sense to do that.
Well, and contingent offers are going to come back. That we're already starting to see it.
I'm already seeing that, yes.
Yeah.
I just had an offer accepted, $500,000 purchase where the seller accepted a contingent offer, and also we negotiated the 2-1 buy down.
Yes.
So I thought, wow, I didn't see that coming, but it's back, baby.
Well, but here's the good thing. That buyer loves that house.
Yes.
And what seller doesn't want a new homeowner to their beloved home to love it as much as they did,
To
and to
appreciate
give
what
it
they've done
another
to it. Right
10
on.
or 20 years worth of memories. And that's the psychology of being a buyer and a seller. And that's where the equalization of the market is getting to right now,
Yes,
which
indeed.
ultimately is a great thing.
Well,
I want to come back, Vic, to something that you said. You said if someone came down by 9,000, that would just reduce the values by 9,000. Nobody wins doing that. For a seller that's been on the market since the summer and they haven't sold their home, maybe they shouldn't reduce the price of their home. Maybe they should improve the terms they're offering.
that's exactly
Yes.
my point.
Right.
Don't do the price reduction. Offer the buy down to have everybody lean into that property with graduated ease into those payments. Because the other thing we got to think about with these graduated easing into payments, the median income in Livingston County is about $85,000. So a general employee would get about a 3% raise per year, and on $85,000, that's about $240 a month next year, another $240 the following year. So by the time this becomes fully indexed, it's going to be just as affordable as today if we buy it with the 2-1 buy down. And if rates go up, you're protected. If rates come down, we refinance, and it's really a no-brainer. This is a great way to fight inflation and handle that objection and get home
build
ownership.
equity. Get home ownership.
Get
Absolutely.
those tax benefits.
You mentioned earlier that there's all kinds of millennials coming. Everyone thought the baby boomers was such a big generation. In fact, today in America, 10,000 people every single day are turning 70.
Wow.
So there's a lot of folks hitting the magic number of 70. There are more millennials, Generation X, Y, Z, young folks with jobs. They're coders. They're working at home. So as far as buying a home, since they no longer drive into work, they love those 4-bedroom colonials because they don't need 4 bedrooms, but they get 2 home offices.
Yeah, that's
and
the
so
truth.
it's the same home, but it's repurposed in the way that it's now used. So when you are looking for a home, if I can afford the payment and I can get in, what you were saying, Victor, I'm not driving to work. I'm saving all that gas. I'm saving wear and tear in my car. I'm saving. And so if gas is $4 something a gallon, who cares? I work from home.
Right.
It's all the indirect things people need to think about.
Yes.
Why this could be a wiser decision than renting or not making a move at all because of your psychology just doesn't have you there yet.
Right.
You don't believe right now.
Well, when Jim and I bought our first house, which was in 1990, we didn't know any better. And I was paying rent and he was paying room and board. And, we made this crazy decision to buy a house in Westland, and it was an FHA mortgage at 10.5%. But we looked at it from the payment aspect and said, well, if you're paying $400 and I'm paying $400, we could afford an $800 a month house payment.
Yes.
And, 10.5 didn't sound bad because I had heard of the rates in the 80s being 14 to 18%. So I was like, well, 10.5 can't be bad. We'll jump in. And, I had relatives that thought I was crazy. My grandma was like, you have to have 20% down. I'm like, Grandma, we don't have 20%, and we made it work and we made money on the house and refinanced it a couple years later. We did our first house. We went from 10.5, and in 2 years, I refinanced it down to 8.5 on a 15-year mortgage. Now, we did not stay there and we did not pay off the house, but it didn't sound, our next house was at 7.5 when we came to Livingston County. So it is your perspective and what you think at that time. So, so we didn't think it was crazy because we had heard rates were higher, and that's the only good thing coming out of the market right now.
I want to add something to what you just said. If I'm used to a house payment at 7% and rates go down to 5%, I'm already paying a 7% house payment. Instead of lowering my house payment, I could lower the number of the years.
Yes.
So instead of a 30-year mortgage, I take a 15-year mortgage. I'm already comfortable with this house payment, and now it's paid off 15 years earlier, and I save about $300,000 in interest.
Right. That is leveraging the opportunity phenomenally.
But you can't even have that opportunity until you jump into the game.
Right. Because if you don't own the house, I had somebody call me. A past client's dad called me, and I did his daughter's mortgage 10 years ago on a rural development loan, and she qualified for that tax credit. Remember that first time homebuyer tax credit that came out when the economy was bad then?
2010.
Yes. Yeah. Well, back then in 2010, if I recall, interest rates were about 5.5%. That whole tax credit thing was shut down very quickly because there was a ton of fraud, of course, and the government was only trying to spur, the market. Well, that year caused so much crazy buyer activity because of the tax credit that interest rates went up.
Yes.
Okay. So actually the buyers that bought a year or two later were somewhat in better shape because rates were so much lower. It kind of didn't matter what happened with the price of the house, but it's like, keep that in mind. Again, do you wait till spring when it's going to be crazy? And it'll probably be more crazy than it was last spring. That's my prediction. I don't normally make predictions.
Let me jump in here. You just said it's better for the buyers. It was not fun when a home came up for sale in an area that a buyer wanted to live in. And it came up, and it was literally, this home is on the market. Do you want to take off work to see it before someone writes an offer? And so there was pressure on the buyer that won't happen in a more normalized market like we are now.
Yeah.
There are more homes coming on the market, so instead of feeling pressured into making this one work, they can actually choose the one that works best for them. So there's so many benefits about a market that is more normal than something that's crazy on either end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen more buyers back out of transactions at the home inspection, I think, in the last 12 months, 18 months.
25% of all the homes
Yeah,
that were
at
had
least.
contracts fell apart at the contractor inspection.
Right, because and it wasn't yes, it could have been a defect with the house, but I think a lot of it was the buyers being so stressed
Buyer remorse.
and looking
Yes.
at that house going, well, this is not really what we wanted. Why are we settling?
Or
We're out.
they said, I'm the winner, but did I overpay?
Yeah.
Or I had one back out the other day, first-time home buyer, and he was just scared of the market, the interest rates. He couldn't believe we got an accepted offer, but now the reality started coming in, and he backed out of inspection. He goes, I can't do it. I'm freaking out. You know, the rates are too high. You know, it's how do we handle those objections there? But I want to shift in to talk about realtors and that, because my daughter is a real estate agent. She just came into it this year, so right now she's experiencing this is normal to her.
Yes.
Okay, she's not one that worked through the good days of the past few years, so this is kind of normal, and she's grinding every day and saying, wow, this is really tough. This is really tough. And then we have the season ones saying, oh my God, I can't believe it where it's at. What is your message? How do you screw your head back on and get your head in the right spot to make it through this, John?
All right, so that's an excellent question. And for all the realtors listening in, it's like so right on. If you're newer in the business, you've been in this business 3 years or less, you are not prepared for the market that we're in now. Yeah. You worked in Twilight Zone. You could take a listing literally at any price with no marketing, and seasoned agents, experienced agents, buyer's agents would bring you offers. So you really didn't learn how to market professionally. You didn't learn how to give customer service. You didn't learn how to communicate because it happened so quickly. So the folks who are in the business newer, they definitely want to come to the program we're doing, Rev Up Your Results, because we'll talk about strategies to get you through the fall, winter, and have next year be your best year ever. You have to work harder, like you said your daughter is doing, because you're an apprentice. You're starting a business. You're an independent contractor. So you have to put the time in. School's never out for the pro. You mentioned that, Nicole, a couple of times. You have to know your business. So do your research. What are the homes selling for? What are they comping for? Talk to appraisers. Find out, how are you making your adjustment? Are you going to be tighter on your appraisals now? So I can share that information with the seller. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, La La Land is over. We need to get realistic. Okay. And for that agent, that newer agent has to mature their language dialogue. They can't be hesitant. They can't show up like, you're my guinea pig. I'm new in the business. New in the business is an excuse. It just means that you didn't learn the business. So what are the major objections that you get from sellers and buyers? What are their biggest concerns? You can't show up and be surprised. They're going to talk about, we want to think it over. You mentioned that. Well, if they want to think it over, what's behind that? What's the why? Is there a hesitation? Is there a fear? Are they watching something on TV, seeing something on the internet that
watching
the market's
the news,
going to crash? Right.
The media.
So again, if it leads, it bleeds. If it bleeds, it leads. If they sell fear, and so one person says now's the right time to buy. Someone else says, oh, we're on a bubble. It's going to crash. Okay, the people that lose out are the people that, like you said, Victor, don't get in the game. So that real estate agent has to work harder because they don't have any mother, brother, sister, friends, relatives that they've already sold homes to. They're still building their business. So they may have to go out and do postcards, knock on doors, boost their social media, make sure their LinkedIn and Facebook and the other social medias that they use, that platform, has something good about them. If you did a good job for somebody, see if you can get a testimonial. I worked with you and I enjoyed the experience. You kept me informed. You really knew what you were doing. You explained the entire process, so I felt confident throughout the entire transaction. You partnered hand in hand with USA Mortgage. You were a great team together. That has to come together for a newer agent. You cannot wing it. You cannot take a chance. You must raise your skill sets.
What about the daily grind? Keeping the motivation to do the daily grind. I hear agents say, I made 50 calls today. I got 5 answers and then 3 of them hung up and, I'm just getting beat. What do I do? How do you keep that motivation? How do you keep their compass pointing north?
Okay, so here's the deal. I don't even coach people or tell people to bang the phone, to call people on the phone. Because of the do not call list, because of the fact that if you call somebody who's on that list but you didn't know about it, you can get $11,000 fine for bothering them. The bottom line is I'm going to set it up, okay? And I'm going to set it up through a strategic plan. If I'm newer in the business and I don't have a new listing, but one of the agents in my office gets a listing, I'm going to ask that agent, can I hold it open for you? And then I'm going to canvass the neighborhood. I'm going to send out postcards. I'm going to door knock with a flyer saying, I'm holding this open on Sunday. You know, if you know anybody, come check it out. And if you have any friends or relatives, somebody from work, somebody you want to carpool with that you want closer to you, you know, come and see it. You know, it's a great opportunity for somebody. And then I'm going to give that flyer to that potential homeowner. And before I turn just a little bit, I'm going to come back with a smile and say, just out of curiosity, have you folks thought about making a move in the near future? Through my aggressive advertising, my professional promotion, I'm going to generate good buyers for the area and neighborhood. Not everybody can buy the home because the homeowner can only sell to one person. I believe we're going to have more buyers lined up. I might have the perfect buyer for you. So if you're thinking about making a move, here's my card, here's my flyer. Keep my name handy because I know how to market homes professionally. See, so it's not just that you're doing the open house. You're doing the open house to sell it for the seller as a service, as what you do to professionally market. But inside of that, you have to be very, very aware that it's an opportunity to brand yourself as an expert in the area.
Well, yeah, here, give me your card. You know, well, it's funny you said that because, you know, my daughter, being new, she actually did that. She asked some agents, hey, do you got any listings? You want me to hold an open house?
Good for
So
your
she'd open
daughter.
a house, and then she would bring my other son as a videographer, and he would do all this video, post it on Facebook. I go, Soccer, it's not your listing. She says, oh, I don't care, Dad. I just want to get the social media and just get the experience and all that.
I wondered who her videographer was.
That's Shingo.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
She's got great video.
Now, here's the cool thing. The seller doesn't care who sells their home.
No.
They want their home sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're partnering with them and you're giving them more exposure, good for the seller and the other agent.
Well, it's kind of funny because she had another open house yesterday or something. She couldn't find her open house sign, and she left it at the old open house from last week.
Oh,
right?
no.
And it just happens to be I'm doing the mortgage for the guy in a new house he's buying, and I call him up and go, hey, man, is there an open house sign left on your yard? He goes, no, but it's down at the end of the street. I go, hey, could you pick that up? And I'll see you at closing. You know, by the way, my daughter owes me a beer.
That's another strategy. Instead of one open house, buy 7.
Yeah.
And then as you're leading people into the house or the subdivision, knock on the door and say, do you mind if I borrow just a tiny piece of your lawn for 2 hours so I can put an open house sign there? That person almost always gets ignored.
Yeah.
And they look out the window and they see somebody's sign. It's like, wait a minute.
So what was that strategy again, though?
So you look at how do I come into the neighborhood and where are the corner houses that I would like to place a directional sign?
Right.
And now I go and knock on the door and I ask permission and say, I'm holding this open. Here's a flyer. We're going to generate. I'd love with
Now
your
they got your
permission.
name.
And now they've got your name and they think this agent was courteous. People have done this for years. You're the first one that took the time to ask permission.
Yeah.
We're thinking about moving. We like your style.
Wow, that's a good angle there.
That's a great
angle.
angle.
And at that open house, I went to an open house, first time in 20 years. Last Sunday I went there. And one of my past customers come in, but he's using a different mortgage guy because he's a wrestling coach.
Oh, dear. Yes, I do.
But the agent there had a really cool idea. She just didn't have a flyer regarding the open house. What she did is pull comps on all the similar sales in the area and says, oh, if you don't like this house, here's these. And by the way, here's my card. I thought, wow, that's a cool strategy.
Also, a cool strategy is to have you do sheets for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you buy the home for this price and you buy down the interest rate, here's the payment. So now the choice is, which payment would you like?
Yep.
Absolutely. And we've done that in the past for many years. Clearly, we have not done it in the last 3 to 5 years.
Well, that's going to come back
so
now.
So any of the realtors that are only been in 5 years, like they're not going to, they don't remember that because nobody needed it. But now that's going to be obviously a big factor.
I did bring some information on the 2-1 buy down, but maybe I should be talking to all those agents, say what listings you got, what open houses you got. Let's do a 2-1 down flyer and let's get it to that open house.
Absolutely.
You know, because we all
well, they should be. It has nothing to do with the open house. They should be sitting in the house.
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's like, we got to grind together.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
I can almost see a song in there. We got to grind together.
Oh, God. He's going to write another song.
We're writing songs.
Well, we're in the right area of the country. I mean, the Midwest is known for tradition, hard work,
Yeah.
family and belonging. So, I mean, we're blue collar. We're used
Yeah,
to
we
working
are.
hard.
Yeah.
So,
It does. I've said to Vic for years, I said, doesn't matter how long we've been doing this.
Right.
Doesn't matter how much money we made last year. The first of every month, we start over with a zero. The first of every year, we start over with a zero.
And we wake up every morning unemployed.
Unemployed.
right
Yeah.
on. Yes. And, your daughter, she contacted her, someone else, a realtor, 50 people, they made 50 calls. They were kind of depressed because nobody said yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's 50 people they eliminated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're not looking for the no's. The psychological game is I'm looking for the yes. I'm eliminating the no's and working with the people that are serious.
Well, and I tried to pump her up. I said, "Look, man, use that as objection handlers to, to work your craft.
Yes.
And ask those questions and listen to those answers. And if you get a negative, refine that question. Use those no's as a positive to build your craft.
So here's something else. Let's say, for instance, you have children and they're playing lacrosse, they're playing soccer, they're doing some kind of sport. You go in the bleachers and you're watching them. That's where you should be doing your CMAs. That's where you should be crunching your numbers. So you have your laptop out, you have your information spread, you have computer sheets out. Somebody sitting there watching their child playing is going to say, are you in real estate? How's the market? And that person has something in common with you. Your kids are playing on the same team. And they say, hey, can I have your card? We'd like to know what our home is worth. We're going to be retiring next year. We're going to be, after the kids get out of school, moving, downsizing, right-sizing. So everything is an opportunity. You go into a restaurant. Okay, you can sit in the booth or you could sit up at the bar part of the restaurant. Again, you open up stuff, you put your real estate, somebody's sitting right or left. You can say, hey, are you in real estate? How's the market? You want to stimulate conversations because right now everybody wants to know. Bonds are down, stocks are down. How's real estate?
Right.
Real estate's doing much better than stocks and bonds.
Right.
It's funny you bring up the soccer fields because my kids, it's 20 years in soccer. That's all I've ever done. My daughter being a realtor, she's out of soccer now, but she decided to start doing coaching.
Yes.
And so she coaches these little, 11-year-olds and 7-year-olds, has a couple teams. And now she co-brands with another loan officer in our office, not her dad, and does co-brands water bottles and gives all the information to all the soccer parents. So trying to network and let them know. So
when my kids were in school or activities, I always built relationships with people at school, at church, at the clubs, at the sports. And it always generated business. And my husband would be like, well, why are you doing that? Why are you volunteering for that? Well, first of all, ultimately, I do want to give back to the community that we participate in.
Yes.
But people want to do business with who they know, like, and trust.
Yes.
And if they get to know somebody on a personal level, even if you don't tell them what you do for a living, right? They'll eventually find out, but back in the day, I never wore a shirt that said Danielle Boop, mortgage loan officer. Should have probably, but we didn't brand.
Now it'd be appropriate.
We didn't brand that way back then.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Not only are you absolutely astute and spot on with what you're saying, but in today's world where there's stranger danger, I mean, we've got electronic gizmos outside our door to see who's there from our phone. We've got locks on the door, deadbolts on the door. We've got chains on the door. For them to know you becomes a psychological safe choice.
Yeah.
And honestly, in today's world, people want to work with someone that makes them feel safe. So what you just said is more than just getting to know me. It's because I know you and familiar with you, and I see how you participate or contribute or volunteer. That transfers to if you do this for free and you're that good at it, I know if I hire you, you're going to continue to do that even more now.
Absolutely.
So like you said, we're now brands. We're not just, Danielle and Victor and John.
Right.
We're brands, and we're always on stage and people are always watching.
I got a question here. That open house I had last week, okay? A client come in, and the agent automatically asked this potential client, hey, are you working with a realtor? And the client said, yes, I am, but she was too busy to show me this house, because it's the weekend. possibly. How do you handle, what would you do in that situation? Because this agent actually said, oh, well, if she's too busy, she says, you know what? I am new. This is my first or second open house, but what I can do, I can have the time. You know, is that a good objection to handle that? What would you advise a new agent that come across that type of situation? Do you let them know that I am new, like we just discussed, or you don't? You fake it till you make it.
Okay, that last part you never do. Okay, that was from last century.
Okay.
People were taught fake it till you make it. People can see when you're insincere.
Okay.
So you're much better off having a sincere curiosity than fake it till you make it. And so I teach people to get better results by asking better questions. And so anything you can tell, I can teach you how to ask better. So when that person says, are you working with another agent? I might have phrased the question differently. Just out of curiosity, how many homes have you seen? See, because if they haven't seen any, they might not be working with an agent. But if they say we looked at 17 homes, somebody's showing them homes. Okay, and then instead of saying I'm new in the business, I have all kinds of time, I like the leveraging of I have the time, I can make you a top priority. I don't like saying I'm new. I work in a certain way, Victor and Danielle. What I do is I only work with a select number of people so I can give them the kind of service and attention they deserve. If you were working with me, I would make sure to accompany you to answer all questions.
So you're interviewing them to hire them.
Absolutely.
See, I like that. Mm-hmm. Better results with better questions. And I'm trying to think of this in my own business too. Mm-hmm. You know, am I asking the right questions? You know, because I've been doing this 20 years. My ego plays a role. Oh, hey, I know what the hell I'm doing. Maybe I don't. Maybe I could do better with better questions.
Well, let me give you another question.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, are you working with an agent? I could ask, if I found the perfect home for you,
would you work with me?
Would you work with me?
Interesting.
Now I don't have to say I'm new in the business, and I don't have to say, are you working with other agents? And just because they might think they're working with another agent, if the other agent is really representing them and they're leaving them unrepresented as they go through open houses, if that house is something they really want, how can that agent now say to the seller, say to the listing agent, my buyer's writing an offer, when we were in the home, we noticed X, Y, and Z, and that's why our offer is reasonable and fair,
right? Because
there's some deferred maintenance. There's some things that we notice that the buyer is willing to accept. They lose all that negotiating.
Interesting. Oh.
And typically, I mean, here's the risk that I see for a potential buyer's agent that does not accompany their buyers. Uh-huh. The buyers are going to tell things to that realtor that's in the open house. And if that's the listing agent, you are giving, you know, potentially negotiating tactics.
Oh my gosh, we love this home. What? Oh, do you have any offers yet? Oh,
yes.
Don't listen. I'm going to call my agent right now.
Yeah.
They just told that realtor, we're coming in full price or higher because we've fallen in love with this. They lost negotiating. That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
What about realtor reputation? You know, we see many agents. You know, they show people homes. They don't have a buyer agency signed. Oh, the first one, they get a free ride. So, you know, so we get to know them. Or they may get a lead off of some online thing, right? I got this lead. They just called. They want to see this house. What is the advice for a new agent or a seasoned professional? Because a lot of those deals blow up and they are not pre-approved.
You really know your craft. For a realtor to take somebody around, I mean, think about it. Well, you want to go to a weekend? You want to go to the movie? No. You want to do this? No. You want to, hey, I got an idea. Let's get a realtor to show us some open houses. That'd be fun. Okay. So now that realtor is an unpaid taxi cab driver. Mm-hmm. They haven't qualified the buyer because I don't want to hurt their feelings. You know, let's bond. Let's be friends first, and then I'll ask them. First of all, here's the bad news. I take you out without qualifying you, without having you go through USA Mortgage and find out what you can comfortably afford. You see a home and you fall in love with it. And now they contact you and you say you can afford $50,000 less than the home you just looked at.
Yep.
Okay, here's the sad news. Not that they just can't get that home, but every home they look at from now on that they can't afford, they're going to constantly say, well, we're settling because we really love the other one. That's not fair to the buyer. So I would absolutely recommend, no matter how long you've been in the business, 6 minutes or 16 years or longer, Mr. Mrs. Buyer, let's put you in the strongest negotiating position possible. Let's take care of your financing. This way we know every home we see, if you like it, you can buy it.
Well, go back to the first call, though, because the realtors, I hear this quite often. I don't want to lose them because if I raise my bar and say no one gets into my car unless they're fully pre-approved and we know what's going on, I may lose that lead. I'm going to take them for a free ride. I get that quite a bit. How does an agent break that barrier and raise their bar and hold true to their business structure, their business plan?
Okay, so people have different business strands, and there's different ways that you can structure it, okay? The thing you want to know is if I take both of you out and we look at a home, I might consider it a coffee date. Okay, before I'm going to ask you to get married, let's at least have a coffee and get to know you. So I might go out with you so you can see my style. Are you comfortable with me? Am I comfortable with you? At that time, though, you should tell the buyer, listen, has anyone explained to you the different levels of service that are available today? If you are running around with no one representing you, anything you say can and will be used against you. So inside a house, in today's house, they're smart houses. You think you're going through an open house, but you're mentioning something to the person you came with, your friend, and they're watching you through the eyes of the teddy bear on the shelf. So you have to be very careful. The houses today are hot. They're wired. And you think you can say, well, you know what, I would never offer this. Oh, man, I fell in love. The one down the street sold for more. This one's underpriced. I'm going to make an offer on this.
Right.
They're watching you. So besides finding out, do I like this person? Do I feel comfortable with this person? Listen, this is so easy. I say to that first-time buyer, let's do a Zoom call.
Not bad.
And now we can have our meet and greet and coffee on the Zoom.
So that person makes the call, and that realtor suggests, you know what? Let's do a Zoom call. Let's meet face-to-face. Let me understand your wants, needs, and desires and get a feel. Do you even want to work with me? Do I want to work with you?
Right on.
And then do you make a decision to go show them a home, or do you push to say, you know what? Because of the market, we need to make sure you're fully ready to go financially. So because it becomes stressful if you put an offer in and get it accepted, right? And now we got to get your finances together. A lot of times there's some pre-work that needs to be done to prepare you. How do you have those conversations, and how do you keep the loyalty of that potential home buyer?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Now, here's the answer. If I'm working with you and I don't know what you can afford, then I can't really work well for you. I need to know what's your comfort zone. Okay, so let's say, for instance, you can afford $3,000 a month for a house payment, but you really only want to pay $2,500. And so now I show you a home and it's $2,600. And I can look you in the eye and say, you're qualified to $3,000. You could easily afford this. It's not tapping you out. So that helps out. The other thing that I can find out is sometimes when people think they're qualified, okay, they forgot about student loans. They forgot about the fact that one of them has bad credit, and maybe we're only going to qualify you with the person with the good credit because the bad credit could income average and you end up with a higher interest rate. So in today's world, with the interest rates are what they are, you want to find out what's the best way for you to buy the home. And should they be 20% down? Maybe not. I mean, 7% is still cheap money.
Right.
Maybe they're better off with 5 or 10% down, and they can use that other money to remodel the house, to put the upgrades that it doesn't have, instantly building future equity.
Okay. Very interesting. I'm going on
That's
another
okay.
tangent here, but dress code with realtors, you know, I've seen over the years, it seems to be very, very casual now. Is there anything wrong with a suit, or is there anything wrong with being very casual or trying to mirror what that buyer is doing? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I'm old school. You see, I came in for the podcast today with a suit on.
Yep. It's a beautiful suit on the radio, by the way.
Well, thank you very, very much. I'm dressed for
On the
success.
radio. It's a
Yeah?
podcast. There's not even a radio anymore.
I'm dressed for success. They're reading me. They're looking at me. They're judging
Trying to
me.
take you apart.
They're trying to say, is this person professional? Do they sound professional? Do they look professional? Do I feel good about working with them? If I show up and I don't have my best clothes on, then it's possible they might say this person didn't even care enough to look professional. If they're sloppy in their appearance, are they going to be sloppy in the way that they work?
Something you can control.
Well,
You
we
can
we
control
talked
that.
about before the show. Even remember realtors being told that you had to clean your car.
Yes.
Get the car washed. Make sure it doesn't look like there's 3 days of McDonald's wrappers. on
This
it.
may be-
And you bring that up, but here's the point.
Yeah.
With COVID for 2 years, nobody put buyers in their car.
Yeah.
Now,
And
you,
they-
need,
Oh,
now
yeah.
you need to clean your car again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, and this may be discriminative, and I don't want to make it sound that way, but my father, when he was alive, when I was younger, he says, if you ever go get a girlfriend, you look in the back seat of her car. I go, why is that, Dad? He goes, because if it's dirty, that's what's going on in her head there, and you want to stay away from them type. You want a nice, clean car. And I never knew what that meant. But so I look
it's
in the back
interesting.
seat of my kids' cars, and they're all trashed.
If you're working with an executive,
But Maya's car's clean.
Yeah. Oh God, spotless.
if you're working with an executive or a high level person,
Yeah.
they in a job interview, one of the first things they do is they look to see if you took the time to polish your shoes. Because if you didn't take the time to polish your shoes, you're not detail oriented. So isn't that you put your best foot forward? That's where that saying
Oh,
came
Yeah,
okay. Now there's
Well,
there's
but
some meat to
but
that.
those things will matter,
They do matter.
regardless of what your clientele is, right? I mean, you should present well. You
Now,
know,
here's the deal. I can show up in a suit, okay, and if you're not in a suit, I can always take off my suit coat. I can always loosen my tie. And the next time we get together, you still had that impression that he was professional, she was professional the first time,
right?
and now we're buds.
Correct.
Okay, we know
Correct,
each other.
Yeah.
Hey, we are getting way over on
Are
time
we way
here,
over?
by
I
the
bet
way.
we
Yeah,
are.
66
Oh, my.
minutes. So
Okay.
let's get down
Wow.
to some nuts and bolts. That went by. See, that went by pretty quick, eh?
Yeah.
You both are good.
Yeah, but okay. So let's go over the event. So we've got Danielle. Why don't you go over that one more time here?
Tuesday, November 1st at Crystal Gardens in Howell. We have Rev Up Your Results, preparing for 2023. So if you are a real estate professional or even affiliate of the real estate industry and are looking for some motivation and to just charge yourself up again,
And a free lunch.
and
We got a free lunch buffet.
and a free lunch, give our office a call, and we'd be happy to get you on our RSVP list. So reservations are required so
Yep.
that we have enough seats and enough food for everybody.
One thing I want to say is that I know with the numbers, we already have a whole bunch of people that registered.
we do.
So
yes.
there's not that many seats left, and we're coming on in 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
if you want to be a professional or you want to take your skill sets to a new level, one of the things that I'm going to do at that program is not just some inspiration and get people fired up to make more money, but I will resolve in the moment. They can bring any and all objections, concerns, mean things that people say to them, and I will take care of that in seconds.
So bring your questions.
Bring your toughest objections.
Yeah.
And I'll show you. In fact, I challenge you to try and stop me with an objection.
Well, I'm actually pumped up about this.
I
You
know, I know.
And you also offer coaching post the meeting that we're going to have at Crystal Gardens. You offer services, coaching, and all that stuff too. And I like the fact that you're coming on board because it's kind of a neutral party. We've got many brokerages in our county, but and every brokerage has their own Kool-Aid that everybody drinks. And it's nice to see that from a third party of what you're seeing nationwide, locally, to have everybody have an additional tool in their arsenal
yes.
to reach out to and get an objective view and hopefully dial in. It's time to dial in, people.
Well, this is called Rev Up Your Results because everyone who shows up is going to walk out with some skill sets to go out that day and get better results.
That's excellent, and I came out of this with better results, with better questions. I love that. I'm gonna make a new bumper sticker with a smiley face on it.
Oh, so here's what's funny. You talked about a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
My license plate says "Ask More."
Oh, that's cool.
I'm the
I love
only real
that.
estate agent in the entire state of Michigan licensed to ask more.
That's beautiful. That is a true statement.
That is
there.
awesome. I love that.
Okay, well, hey,
and our event is also on Eventbrite.
Yes.
So it is listed as a public event, so you could go on there, put in your name, email address, and it will give you a
What time does
ticket.
that start?
At 11 a.m.
So what a perfect time. You can do business for an hour and a half, drive over,
have a lunch.
have
Have
a lunch,
lunch.
and walk away with skill sets around listing, working with buyers, negotiating, pricing right, talking about how to do the 2-1 program that you offer to position your buyer to get the home at a lower house payment, to help the seller make their home more saleable. I mean, it's a win-win.
It is,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and actually, if any mortgage loan officers out there are interested in coming by, look on Eventbrite. Is that
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
because we are all in this together, and we're going to all dial in here. So, any last gold nugget there, John?
I would say the real estate market is a great place to be. And don't worry about what's saying outside, what's happening outside. It's your internal conversation that determines your success.
Absolutely. So that is Mr. John Tenza. I have my co-hostess with the Moses, Mrs. Danielle Booth. This is Victor Bals, and we'll see you next time here on A Smarter Way Home.